Let's take just a minute. Bear with us. We're going Facebook Live here. The feed is setting up right now. Almost there. It's taking a little longer than expected. Sorry, everybody. Try again. Might have to call Mark Zuckerberg to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
Does anybody have Mark on their speed dial? Okay, here we go. Trying again. One more time.
Somebody on the chat has it.
All right, I tell you what. This doesn't seem to be connecting to Facebook for whatever reason. Sometimes it doesn't work, Zoom to Facebook and these webinars. So let's just go ahead and go for it, and I'll work on the live feed while our panel is rolling. How about that? All right, so Nicole, take it away, or Karen.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our third webinar of a 4-part series, How to Live with a Loved One Who is an Addict or who has a mental illness. So welcome. We are Team Up for Hope, and we are a nonprofit organization that was created to help address the impact of mental illness, substance use, and suicide within our community. We're doing this by raising funds and awareness for local nonprofit organizations at the forefront of this crisis. Tonight, well, let me just start and say we, Team Up for Hope has partnered with Nami Orange and Nami Sussex. And tonight we are going to have the honor of hearing from quite a few of the women who work there and do a lot of the advocating and supporting families through this process. So I have the honor to introduce Jerry. She is from Nami Sussex. She is a board of trustee. She is a teacher of family to family and the Nami basics courses. And she also is a facilitator of the family support group. Jerry, thank you so much for being here this evening with us, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thanks, Nicole. So I'm Jerry with Nami Sussex, and I'm also the mother of an adult son with mental illness. And Nami helped me and my husband out a lot, especially in the beginning of our son's illness when we didn't know where to turn. And that's why we want to help you, our audience, understand how to access the help of Nami. So in case any of you don't know, NAMI's an acronym that stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So Jeff, could you bring up my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can. It's loading. Here we go.
There you go. So National Alliance on Mental Illness, and you see their web address, nami.org. And I hope you'll visit that website because it has a lot to offer, an awful lot to offer. NAMI has headquarters in Virginia, and it has an office in every state. and it has over 600 local affiliates, of which Nami Sussex and Nami Orange are among the local affiliates. And you may not know this, but for most of the local affiliates, it's all volunteer. There are very few affiliates that have paid employees. So Nami is sometimes considered the nation's voice on mental illness, and it provides advocacy, education, support, and public awareness so that all individuals and families affected by mental illness can build better lives. So tonight I'm going to start out by giving an overview about mental illness and let you know how prevalent it is. A mental illness is a medical condition that disrupts a person's thinking, feeling, mood, daily functioning, and ability to relate to others. It's a disorder of the brain, just as diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas. Mental illness affects a person's behaviors, but the ill person is not to blame for their behaviors because they're not choosing to behave in a negative way. Likewise, family members are not to blame or be blamed, and family and friends can help guide the ill person to professional help. I like to put it this way. Can we go back a slide, Jeff? I like to make this analogy. If your loved one had the flu and a high fever, you wouldn't blame them if they stayed in bed all day, didn't go to work. If the fever became so high that they became delirious, you wouldn't be angry at them if they were talking in nonsensical ways and imagining things that weren't real. You would get them to a doctor. And that's what we hope that you'll be able to do for your loved one with mental illness. Slide. Now, one of the biggest problems that families face is that very often the ill person does not believe they need professional help. They're in what we call denial, and they have an inability to recognize their own symptoms of mental illness. And that's actually a symptom in itself, which has a medical name, anosognosia. Now, you understanding that about denial may not make it any easier to get them to treatment, but at least it can help you put aside some of your own feelings of anger and resentment and frustration. So what are some of the most common mental illnesses? Depressive disorder or depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, and schizophrenia. And there are a lot of others too. Symptoms of the various disorders can be similar and they can overlap. So we're not going to distinguish tonight from one disorder to the other when we talk about symptoms. For any diagnosis, there can be a wide range of severity of symptoms, from mild to severe. Mental illness is common. Approximately 1 in 5 adults and teens in the US experiences a mental illness in a given year. And almost 10% of US adults, I don't have statistics on youth and teens, have a substance use disorder. And over half of those with substance use disorder have a co-occurring mental illness. Now, these statistics are actually pre-COVID-19, and we all suspect and fear that the percentages are going to be going up as a result of all the stress caused by COVID-19. So a sad fact is that it often takes years of trying to cope with symptoms before a person finally gets a diagnosis and begins treatment. So as a family caregiver, you're going to need information to help you figure out what the warning signs are that you're seeing and whether or not they are significant enough that your loved one needs professional treatment, and also what to do if the symptoms hit a crisis point. So I have a real gift to offer you tonight, and that is this Nami's Navigating a Mental Health Crisis Guide, which you see the cover page on the screen. It was published in 2018, and you can download it from the NAMI.org website, but I find it difficult to find it on there. So we've put it on our Nami Sussex website. I'll name that for you tonight, right now, but it's going to appear at the end of our webinar. It'll be up on the screen. Our web address is nami-sussex-nj.org. And we really hope you'll keep this crisis plan handy. Within it, you'll find a portable treatment record that you can use to keep track of all the medications and hospitalizations that your loved one has had, and a crisis plan and a relapse plan that you can work on with your loved one. Not when they're in the crisis, but when things have calmed down, you can work on it, or ahead of a crisis, you can work on it. So I know that some of you may have heard that some illnesses have no cure, some mental illnesses have no cure, but recovery is always possible. And with proper treatment, symptoms can become very manageable. And I'd have to say most people with mental illnesses can live happy and productive lives. That is, provided they can get past that phase of being in denial and refusing to go for help. Now, few people, in my opinion, with mental illness are going to be able to find their road to recovery on their own. Most need loving family members or close friends to help guide them along the way, one step at a time, especially after an acute episode of mental illness. Slide. So now you see a lot of words crammed onto the next couple of slides, and we're not going to try to read all these words, but some warning signs that indicate a person needs professional help can be, and these are in, this is all in that NAMI Navigating a Mental Health Crisis Guide. They've put them into categories. So first category is social withdrawal. I think you all know what that might look like, self-isolation. Then mood disturbances, depression, especially if it's lasting more than 2 weeks. Everybody can have an upsetting event in their life and get depressed about it. But if it's lasting more than 2 weeks, excessive fatigue, hopelessness. And then at the other end of the mood spectrum, there's manic symptoms, real high energy, nonstop talking, grandiosity. And then we come to one of the most difficult categories of symptoms, thought disturbances. That can lead to inability to concentrate, inability to make decisions, but the most difficult of all is when it leads to psychosis. A lot of people don't know what psychosis really is. It just means being out of touch with reality, and the person might be thinking they're someone they're not, like maybe they think they're a prophet. They might be hearing voices. They might be seeing things that aren't there. And that is probably the most difficult type of symptoms to be dealing with. Okay, slide. Okay, irregular expressions of feelings, unusual hostility or anger, indifference to situations, maybe inappropriate laughing or crying, and then change, inactivity, maybe they're getting into car accidents, substance abuse, losing things, losing track of things, and then the last one on that list is harming themselves by cutting, burning, etc. Okay, next slide. So what constitutes a mental health crisis that requires immediate intervention? That would be danger to self or others, where there might be verbal threats, violent, out of control behavior, destruction of property, and perhaps talking about suicide or showing signs that one's contemplating suicide. Next week's webinar is actually going to really focus on suicide and the warning signs of that. So we don't need to go into that in detail tonight. Now, about violence, or if you could stay on that slide for a minute, Jeff, about violence, I just want to make clear that the vast majority of people with mental illness will never act out in a violent way toward others. But it's important to know who you can call when you sense danger looming. And the Navigating a Mental Health Crisis Guide explains what to do when you need to call for police or a mental health crisis team to come out. Slide. Now, what the crisis guide can't give you is the local contact information. So I wanted to give that to you tonight. In Sussex County, New Jersey, we have a psychiatric emergency services department located at Newton Medical Center in Newton. However, for folks that live up in the Vernon area, it's, if you call them at that number in red, 973-383-0973, it's going to take a while for them to come out. So you might need to call 911 for the fastest possible response. And then you can ask the police to call the crisis center, or you can call the emergency services. You can call them yourself as well. Now in Orange County, New York, this was interesting for me to learn. You don't need to dial 911 at all if you have a mental health emergency, because they've created the Orange County Crisis Call Center using the number 311. And then the crisis call operator will connect to 911 if they feel it's necessary for police to come to the scene. And you, as the caring family member or friend, can ask for a crisis mobile response team, whether you live in Sussex County or Orange County, to come to the home. And that's usually going to be with police backup. And the police are always going to come if you indicate that the loved one is on drugs or alcohol, under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time. Slide. When calling 911 or 311 in Orange County, be sure to say this is a mental health emergency. Let the dispatcher know if your loved one has ever been violent in the past and whether or not they have a weapon and if they're under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Another thing you might want to know is that you can request a CIT trained officer. CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Training. It's a 40-hour training for police on how to recognize signs of mental illness, autism, or developmental disabilities, and they're trained how to de-escalate any situations involving people with those conditions. There's really only a fairly small percentage of police who have had the full 40-hour CIT training. A goal in our county of Sussex is to get 20% of every police department trained. And I don't know what it is up in Orange, but all police in New York and New Jersey have had some training in these techniques. Next slide. So while you're waiting for help to come, if you don't feel safe, quietly leave the premises. Don't make a big show of it. Maybe just get out of there quietly and wait in a safe location for help to come. So there's so much more in that crisis guide. It goes on to describe what you can expect from both inpatient and outpatient mental health treatment, the different types of treatment, and also how to make sure that your family input is heard. And it explains what you can expect from medication and describes the various types of psychotherapy that are available. So whether it's before or after a crisis, it can be difficult to find appropriate outpatient treatment. The inpatient is a little clearer, and it's such an emergency. If they have to go into the hospital, that's pretty obvious how that's going to be handled. But when searching for outpatient, it can be difficult, and your loved one's going to need your help. They're going to need help navigating health insurance, remembering to take their prescribed medications, keeping track of appointments, possibly applying for Social Security benefits if they're unable to work. So, slide. If this sounds like hard work, that's because it is. But your loved one is definitely worth the effort. And remember that your loved one's thinking ability is probably going to be scrambled in a way for some time until the long, slow process of treatment can take effect. And try not to make the mistake of thinking, well, I shouldn't have to do all this for him or her because they're an adult. They should be able to do these things like take their medicine on their own. This is not enabling. These illnesses have a very huge effect, as we covered earlier, on the ability of the brain to function with the daily tasks of living. And they're going to need a lot of help until they get stabilized from treatment. So you can try to shift your paradigm in a way, if you've heard that expression, and think of this work as your mission rather than your burden. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing. That was a great presentation and very, very informative. So thank you. I just want to remind all the attendees that if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat box and or the Q&A, and we're going to answer them at the end of all the speakers. Right now, I'd like to introduce Tiffany Megna, who has a few words she would like to share with us regarding Team Up for Hope.
Hello, I'm Tiffany. I work in the Warwick office and I live in Warwick, and I don't have a fancy story for you, and I have 0 PowerPoints, but I do live in a community that is awesome, and my angle for this whole Team Up for Hope mission is for people to join together and help people going through crisis right in our own communities. Everybody chooses their own way to donate and charities and volunteer, but you're not really sure where your money's going and who the people are in need that are actually taking away your time. In this situation, Nami Sussex, Nami Orange are right on our doorsteps with people suffering. I mean, it's hard not to cry listening to some of their stories coming from the average Joe perspective. You know, I'm grateful that I don't have any of these problems, but I think it's very easy for people to not feel like they're daily occurrences. And after hearing these speeches and these presentations from people in need, it's touching. And if it's not something that affects you personally, you should be lucky and you should be grateful, and it should make you want to help others that are struggling. And before this pandemic, these issues existed. This has just made everybody come to a new level of crisis. So I'm asking for you, out of the kindness of your heart, not a personal story, as a do-gooder, as a community person, to reach into your heart, your pockets, and send a donation to Team Up for Hope, just to help the people in your community who are suffering. Any amount that you can donate would be appreciated. As of now, I think we've raised about $5,000, and 100% of the donations are going to the people in crisis. Any amount would be appreciated, and you could do that by going on teamupforhope.org, or you could go on facebook.com/teamupforhope. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for sharing that. And I am very grateful to have the opportunity to work with you and Karen Gonin and the rest of the Team Up for Hope committee. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Gonin. Karen, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Nicole.
You're
Can you-
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like to introduce Sheila Sutton. Sheila is from Nami Orange Board of Directors. She's a teacher of Family to Family and Nami Basics courses. She is a facilitator of Family Support Group and a volunteer for Families Helping Families Coordination. Sheila, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karen. Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Sheila. I have a loved one with a mental health disorder, and I want to share with you my story. My story is one of hope and recovery. When you give birth, when I gave birth, some 46 years ago, you plan for that perfect life. You count fingers and toes. You have a perfect name picked out. What could go wrong? You do all the childhood things parents do to make those special memories. The vacations, sports events, holidays, just like the ones you had growing up. You suffer through their teenage years, learning how to drive, sports, the injuries, school grades, and the many, many social relationships. Just like our parents. But none of it prepares you for the challenges of a diagnosis of mental illness. Not for me, not for many of you. What came for me was pure robbery, like someone or something coming in the dead of the night to take away all that is precious to you. Your hopes and dreams for your loved ones are stolen. That time that followed became a battle. There were losses, few wins, lots of tears. No one prepared us for the isolation, the shame from the stigma that even made a casual greeting with friends turn uncomfortable for everyone. I was a registered nurse in a children's ICU at a university setting. There was no book, no website or provider to help prepare my family and I for what we took as a devastating diagnosis. This illness does not discriminate, but it does hold hostage to our hopes and our dreams if we allow it. You see, my son, at 17, he was laughter. He was fun. He's the one you want to hold on to in a storm, sit next to on the roller coaster, and even be with on a rough ride or a rough swim. He's that guy. Then came the early years after high school when my son's childhood best friend was murdered while they were home from college. This, they tell me, can be a first trigger in young adults. But all I remember is the spark that left my son. The genuine laughter that was once so spontaneous was replaced by paranoia and raging, unpredictable mood swings. Speaking to therapists, doctors, case managers, words like bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, needing involuntary hospitalization would bring me to choking tears. How could I make them understand? How could this be happening? My son was stuck in a place that only he saw, all our love, and we couldn't make a connection with him. The years and years of trial and error medication seemed to take him further away from us. God, please, I prayed, bring him back to us. Hospitalizations, jail, more medications. My son was at this time in his 20s. It seemed the world was not ready. The world was not ready. And even more important, no one was caring for the rest of my family. I reached out to Nami through a friend. That was over 16 years ago. So when the tears fell, there was Nami. When self-pity and guilt threatened to destroy my family, there was Nami, comforting me, educating my family, and showing me what hope looks like, showing me that I was not alone. I am grateful to Nami, and this is what allows me to give back. Through the many programs and classes I teach, I still continue to get that support from the many families that participate in our programs. They are the heroes, brave to step forward and shine light on the challenges of our family and loved ones. So this is what hope looks like for me. My son, down in his 40s, a father, raising his son, still has his challenges, but the losses have made us stronger. This story is for everyone that battles mental illness disorder. The challenges and expectations may be different inside every family, but the spirit inside each of our loved ones is still strong, and they can move toward a meaningful recovery with our love and support. Um, I want to say Nami now for me as serving on the board of directors. I also teach the classes, as you stated before, family to family and Nami basics. And these classes teach family about mental disorders, prognosis, medications, and communication skills. The classes are free, and some of them, most of them, are virtual now. I help facilitate the monthly NAMI educational meetings for the community, facilitating NAMI family support groups. The groups are classes that are structured, including privacy. They are trained by family members with lived experience, like myself. NAMI believes when a person has a mental health disorder, the whole family is affected. Some of our signature programs listed on the website are peer-driven. And you can go to that website, like Jerry said, NAMI Orange, New York, and NAMISussex.org. I want to say early intervention is so important. I didn't get that support before NAMI. Now I get to help others to understand and learn new ways to communicate with their loved ones. From a place of suffering from a mental illness to a place of living with a mental health disorder. Okay? Lastly, I want to go to the slides just briefly for 2 minutes. I want to ask for slide number 3, Jeffrey. I'd like to take just 2 minutes to describe one particular handout from our NAMI class that's designed to give families what they need when they need it. If you can look at these slides, they're 1 through 3. You'll see them as we move on. And each one lists, you can go to the next slide, the next one, yes. And each one lists the predictable stages of emotional reaction that a family goes through. And it's followed by the needs that that family should have to help them with the event. Go to the next slide, please. So the first stage, a catastrophic event. A catastrophic event such as a new onset diagnosis, a psychotic episode, a self-harming episode or injury. These are catastrophic. The family will be in shock. There's chaos, there's hope against hope, even disbelief. The need at that time. What is needed? You see the list of needs. Support. Gather your team, okay? Have a team. Family members, church, therapists, people empathetic, people that have been through this. Finding resources. You want early intervention to improve prognosis. NAMI also has a hotline. Jerry talked about it, 311, I'm sorry, the Orange County Crisis Call Center. This service was so invaluable to me. I tell you, I've used it before. They support to assessment and can dispatch a crisis mobile response team. They've helped me directly speak to police regarding my son's episode. And then we have stage 2. Can we go to the next slide? Stage 2, learning to cope. Now, families experience guilt, resentment, anger, fear of the unknown. That's a really big one, fear of the unknown. I hear people say all the time, oh, he'll get over it, you'll be okay. No, there is a need. The need is to talk. Families of our loved ones, they need to talk, they need to vent, and you need a good listener for that. So if any of you out there know of one, please let me know, because it's very hard for people to listen. You need education, you need skill training. I think I explained how NAMI helps with that. But there's also good information on the website, again, as was said before, as well as emergency toolkits to help you navigate while waiting for a class, but have a plan and let others know the plan. And don't forget, self-care is first. The last stage, can we go to the next slide, Jeffrey, please? The last one is the advocacy stage. I love this stage. Understanding and accepting. We want mental health disorders to receive the same treatment and research that is dedicated to physical illnesses, okay? Our need is to stay informed. Support systems change all the time. We want to be able to donate, volunteer, become a NAMI member. I really like this stage. I try very hard to live here. I would like to buy property here. It's very hard to stay in advocacy, but you have to remember these stages are fluid. You can move in and out of them. It's okay. My son pulls me back into stage 1 sometimes, but each time it is less frightening. Each time I know what stage I'm in, and I know what it is that I need. Thank you very much. Stay safe, wear a mask.
Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome.
We appreciate all the information you've given us. And obviously, at the end of all of our presentations, there will be time for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. Right now, I'd like to introduce Bridget from Nami Sussex. She is a teacher of Family to Family and Nami Basics courses, IFSS, and Center for Prevention and Counseling Family Support Group participant. Bridget, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. I'm going to be talking about support groups. Jeff, if I can have slide number 1. Support groups. Members provide each other with help. Members with similar issues come together for sharing coping strategies, feeling more empowered, and for a sense of community. Slide 2, please. A little bit about me. I'll be telling you the advantages of attending support groups, what you can expect at a support group, the types of meetings, and some of the things you might learn about at support groups. Next slide, please. Okay, my bio. I'm a parent, a sibling, and a daughter of a person with mental illness and/or substance use disorder. I teach Family to Family and I teach Basics course. I have been involved with NAMI and IFS, which stands for Intensive Family Support Services in Sussex County, for the past 10 years. Next slide. About 15 years ago, my loved ones started demonstrating, one of my loved ones started demonstrating symptoms. For 5 years, I searched. I had many, many responses to his, what I would look like mental health issues, okay? He was hospitalized, and there I found help. At the end of his hospitalization, it was a day before discharge, there was a table on the side of the waiting area, and there was a person sitting there with information. The information said NAMI and meetings. At the time, I just put the information aside. I thought, well, I won't be needing this. He's been here for 2 weeks, and he'll be all better by the time I take him home. Everything will be just fine. Well, 2 weeks later, I realized I definitely needed to reach out for some help. I had so many questions. I was so confused. I was so frightened for him. Okay, 2 weeks later, rather, I attended an IFS meeting, Intensive Family Support Services. And for the first time, I felt these people spoke my language. I sat, I listened, I shared. Years of frustration, embarrassment, and continuing to try to find help. Many people sitting there nodded. I was not alone. Over time, as a family member, my needs changed. My family members changed. I needed new skills and more information. I experienced hospitalizations with them, rehabs, legal issues, and homelessness. Now I had a team of helpers to assist me and my loved ones. I could share my thoughts, feel safe, relate to other stories, all without judgment. The facilitators contributed and offered many, many resources, local resources. Fast forward 15 years, I have benefited, my loved one has benefited, and I have also enjoyed many close relationships. Next slide. Thank you. What can you expect when you go to a support group? First and foremost, for me, was confidentiality. It's ensured that everyone there will keep their their story and your story close to their heart, and that's where it will stay. Next, no sign up, no commitment. Most support groups you attend when you can, and people will be thinking about you when you're not there. Next, you'll have many facilitators that will have a wealth of knowledge and information that can help you and your loved one. And last of all, you'll have a group of people to help you on your journey. You will connect with local services and resources. You'll have a place to ask questions, and you'll have a place where you can get specific information about your loved one. You'll find ways you can get help, and you'll have ways to take care of yourself. As Sheila mentioned, self-help, very important. Okay, types of meetings. We have online meetings. Eventually we'll have in-person again. And more importantly, most of these meetings are free. All of the meetings I'm talking about tonight are free, okay? NAMI support groups. They're general discussion groups about mental illness and a specific or a specific topic. Intensive Family Support Services, IFSS, a chance to chat and ask questions. A facilitator guides the discussion, and individual sessions are also available in Sussex County. The similar group is the Orange County Family Support Services, which provides similar services. You will see a brochure at the end of this presentation about Orange County Family Support Services. Okay. Their program empowers families to find their voice and acquire new skills. They have monthly support groups, and they have a support helpline. Okay. Smart Family and Friends meetings provide support and tools for people affected by the addictive behavior of someone close. The group aims and helps us to develop more effective coping strategies and practical skills. Some of the things you might learn about. You'll learn communication skills. You'll learn how to use vocabulary that supports recovery, such as instead of a mentally ill person, we learn to say a person with a mental illness. We'll learn setting healthy boundaries. Learn about physical and mental health for us and our loved one. Learn to appreciate success and view success differently. Perhaps it's medication-assisted therapy, the MAT. Okay, treatment, you'll learn about treatment methods such as CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, or DBT. Learn about medications. You'll learn about acceptance. How can we support our loved one? And we learn about hope. Taking steps to make changes in life requires considerable courage. Participating in a support group environment comprised of people sharing similar experiences will hopefully lessen feelings of isolation and instill a sense of hope. Thank you. Next slide. Slide 4, please.
That's the last slide I had there.
Okay, it's the one for intensive family support services.
Okay, I think that's, there we go.
Okay. Intensive Family Support Services is the organization that is in Sussex County and its counterpart in Orange County. Next slide, please. Orange County Family Support Program. There it is. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bridget. All these resources will be available later on our Facebook, as well as the YouTube channel for Team Up for Hope. So these resources will be available to everyone who is looking at the webinar or is currently with us. Right now, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Anne-Marie Schaefer. She is from the Center for Prevention and Counseling. She is the Director of Recovery Support Services. Anne-Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karen. Can I ask Jeff, the poll that you did, was there a response on that? I just had curious how many people actually attend support groups.
Yeah, let me get that for you. So the question was, do you attend family support groups for your own benefit? 32% yes, said yes. 68% said no.
Thanks. Thanks for indulging my curiosity to that. And thanks again for inviting me. As Karen said, I work at the Center for Prevention and Counseling in Newton, New Jersey, in Sussex County, and came about this work actually as a family member of 35 years. And I started as a volunteer, curious, because there were several people in my family who were experiencing substance use disorder. And I became aware that I, as a family member, as a close support, could learn things myself that could help them on their journey. You know, initially, I think I started going to my own support group meetings to learn how to help them get better. And in the process, I found myself getting better. And as everyone here has said, hope was in those rooms and hope was in those support groups, which was really important to me going back. And so by learning more at the center, I became a family recovery coach. I am not a counselor. My background is in animal science. I always wanted to be a veterinarian. So full disclosure, I am not a counselor. I have no clinical background. I come to this work as the lived experience of a family member. And along the way, I learned there were different ways to help people recover from substance use. And it was very eye-opening. And most recently, the work with Smart Recovery, which I was asked to share about, really helped me bring a new understanding of how to help a loved one. And it's very similar to the supports that have been referred to here by Sheila and Bridget and Jerry and Tiffany, that we really, by supporting loved ones, we do get help ourselves and further our own hope. So regarding the poll and seeing that many people not attending and perhaps still on the fence about how much it can help you, it really does improve your own life as much as your loved ones. And so Smart Recovery, which I thought I'd hold up our book. So Smart Recovery, Family and Friends. I host a meeting weekly on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. And as Bridget said, it is virtual right now with Zoom. I liked her positive attitude. We will be back in person someday. But for now, it's an hour of Zoom on Thursday nights. And Smart Recovery is actually, it's been around a long time, and it was developed initially to help people who have an addictive behavior, some type of addictive behavior, whether it's alcohol, other drugs, gambling, whatever. And there's 4 tenets of Smart Recovery, and that is building and maintaining motivation, coping with urges, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and living a balanced life. And many of the things that were referred to earlier about different tenets of different support groups. For one is self-care, and that does come with all our support groups. And putting the oxygen mask on yourself first is so important. You know, having your own time to be centered and cared for and listened to is really important. And support groups can do that for you, but as well, any activity that helps you take care of yourself. Using positive communication skills to support loved ones. Many times with a substance use disorder, we as the loved ones are sitting back, kind of keeping score over all the very maladaptive behaviors that are going on. And when we can sit back and stop keeping score and really have more empathy and understanding and manage our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, we can actually help our loved ones better. And oftentimes we focus on what they're doing wrong, what we see them, you know, whether getting arrested or continuing to make poor choices and continuing to use drugs. Those are the things we're sort of keeping score about. Meanwhile, we might not notice that they folded the laundry and cleaned the house or did other things that we can refer to and notice that they're positive behavior and build them up positively. And in the meeting that I facilitate, oftentimes people do come in very distraught, not understanding what's going on. And I see the veil lift very quickly when they hear that they're supported, and like someone else said tonight, the heads are nodding and they hear their own voice, they hear their own life being told by others, and they realize they're not alone. That's a really important thing to understand, that you aren't alone and to be part of a group that knows what you're going through. So I leave you with just something that I think is really important to remember. Through the ages, we've heard things like, let them hit bottom. People only can get help when they want help. That's the only time somebody can get help. Detach from them. I do believe these are all very familiar sound bites that were easy to repeat through the ages and almost let the loved ones off the hook for being responsible for any kind of help for their loved one. And all of those are really unhelpful suggestions. And I like to dispel them right from the start, as well as labels and you know, not labeling yourself codependent or in denial, allowing yourself to, you know, not be labeled, but move forward and find the positive things that you can do and change for yourself and your loved one. And realize that information has changed. And hopefully through the advocacy that Sheila mentioned, we have an advocacy group at the center as well. All our voices advocating for better treatment for people with mental illness and substance use. Who better to carry that message than you who've lived it and understand and can tell your own stories. So there's really many opportunities to be involved as well with substance use. And our website is, actually, Jeff, can you share the 7, is it? File 7, please. We have when COVID hit, our agency never skipped a beat. We went right to telehealth counseling, all of our meetings online. We have telemedicine, which Bridget mentioned, medication-assisted treatment for people for adults with alcohol or opioid use disorders. There are medications that can help people get better with substance use. We also offer a 24-hour hotline in Sussex County right now. It was not 24-hour, 24/7 prior to COVID, but since COVID, we opened it up 24/7 that anybody can call for support, whether you yourself are struggling or you're a loved one and you need help. So there was never a lapse in our services, and our counselors are doing IOP weekly, as well as our recovery coaches meeting with virtually, talking, phoning, texting with people with substance use disorder, as well as with family members. All of these services are free. We are a nonprofit, and we basically exist through grant funding, grants that we write, federal, state, and local grants, as well as foundations and donations. So we really serve a population in need. Most all of the people we serve are underinsured or uninsured, but we can also help get you to where you need help if you do have private insurance or other questions. We have a vast array of state and national connections that we can help get you. We often get calls from people who say a loved one moved across the country, and we're very good at referring people to recovery supports elsewhere and help elsewhere. And the next slide, Jeff, it's file 8, please. It just mentions my SMART meeting on Thursday nights. And this can be found at centerforprevention.org, our website. If you click on recovery supports, all of our meetings are accessed there. The links are there to jump right into any of the support groups. From new moms support group meeting to parents who've lost adult children or children to substance use disorder, to medication assisted recovery anonymous meetings. So those are meetings for people that use medications but can identify in recovery. Sometimes traditional support groups may not be as welcoming, and so people that are using medication to recover are welcome at a MARA group. I really welcome anyone to call or contact us. We have a very robust social media presence at Sussex County Recovery. And if you do have someone who's, and you can remove the slide, Jeff, if you do have someone who is struggling, as was said earlier from all the other presenters, whether it was, you know, if they had diabetes, you would get them to that next step, that doctor. I think that we encourage people to come forward and ask for help. At the same time, if we're encouraging them to come forward and ask for help, whether they're a teenager or an adult, having somebody there who's non-judgmental and able to get them to that next step and welcome them and thank them for calling and thank them for being so honest, it really can help smooth the way for them to move forward. So we try to do that at the center, and I think our recovery coaches are phenomenal. They do such a great job, family recovery coaches as well as individual recovery coaches. Recovery support services for substance use were not even heard of. I actually think they learned from the mental health peers. And so I think the more we actually can work together, mental health and substance use, and advocate together, it really does, it can make a bigger difference in our world moving forward. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to talk, and I welcome any questions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Anne Marie. At this point, what we'd like to do is actually address the Q&A that are currently in the chat. Jeff?
Okay, that's my signal. So let's get into some questions. We have, looks like 4 or 5 here. I just have a quick one myself, actually, and it relates to 311. Sheila, maybe you'd be the best person to answer this, or I'm not sure if anyone else wants to jump in, but if I'm on my cell phone and I call 311, does it work? Sheila, you're muted there. Sheila's, hang on a second. Sheila, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was muted.
There you go.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Years ago, it wasn't like this. They've revised it. They work very closely with the police department and the and mental health facilities that are nearby. What happened was my son needed, he was having an episodic event. He was just out of control. Anyway, when I called, it let me also said, I think someone said this earlier, if there are alcohol and drugs involved, then they'll call the police to go to assess the situation first, just to make sure that they're safe. But if it's our loved one is having an episodic event and clearly psychiatric related, they will speak to you and get the information they need, which you should have handy all the time, and they will come out to you. They will send someone out to you or out to your loved ones. And at that point, they will transport them to the nearest facility. And it works like that. It didn't work so much like that with my son because he left the area. So I was left to deal with the police looking for him. So that put a lot more, it gave me a lot more discomfort to know that police were looking for him. But it's a 311, it's really good. And then they called repeatedly the next day to see how I was doing, see if I had heard from him. Did I need any? They offered all types of resources, housing. They were just full of information.
Okay, great.
I hope I answered that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry, we have a question for you. Your mic is probably muted as well. The question is, a friend was with an employee who shared they were seriously thinking of suicide. We took that person to the local hospital. Was that the right thing to do, or should we have called 311?
Well, were you in Orange County? If you were in Orange County.
Let's assume that is the case for the question.
So that's only for Orange County, New York. But if you called them, I'm not familiar because I live in New Jersey, but I believe they would know what to do. But certainly the fact that you were able to bring the friend to a screening center, that works just as well. I spoke about trying to get a screener or a crisis worker to come to the home because sometimes you can't get the person to get in the car and willingly go with you to psych emergency. But that if they're willing to go with you, that's usually the better way rather than have the police bring them.
And just a follow-up.
I want to add on to that any facility, a medical facility that will address that need of that person speaking about suicide. The idea is to get them into any facility and they'll take over from there.
Well, that was my follow-up question, Sheila. So every ER is equipped to deal with people with suicidal thoughts and whatnot? Any ER is capable of dealing with that?
No, not every ER is capable of dealing with it, but you're in a facility where they can find out what to do. They can refer, they can get someone to come and look at you. This is their responsibility at that point, to get them away, get them out of harm's way, get them in a secure setting, and a hospital is the place to be.
Okay.
Even if the hospital has to move forward with that in terms of getting the proper attention.
Well, that's good to know. Okay, so here's another question, and anyone from the panel can jump in. Is there an OCD support group in Orange County?
I don't know, but the Nami website, NamiOrangeNewYork.com.org, I'm sorry. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I'm absolutely sure that they have support services for OCD or something that includes OCD. I just don't have it pulled up. But that, if you go to the website, you'll find a lot of information. And I'm sure one of them is about OCD. I just don't have it pulled up.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up the PowerPoint right now. I'll flash it across the screen with all the different contact information. And then when we end the webinar, I'll go ahead and show that again. But just if you're curious to know, here it is right here. And if you're watching the recording of this, just pause the video right now. You can take down whatever you want, but let's get back into the questions here. All right.
So if I could just add about an OCD support group.
Please.
There are none that I know of close to us, but NAMI's peer support groups are for people with any type of mental health condition. So I think Nami Orange may have one going. Nami Sussex does not have one of those peer support groups going at this point. But Nami New Jersey, our parent organization, has online peer support groups. It's called Nami Connection. So if you contact your local, whether it's Sussex County or Orange County, then we can connect you to the Nami New Jersey online peer support groups.
Okay, great. Okay, I believe this is for you, Anne Marie. It says, do you have a Zoom meeting number for Smart Recovery on Thursday? Do you have a meeting ID for Zoom for that?
I'm putting it in the chat as we speak.
All right, great. And I will, once that goes into chat, everyone here who's live on the webinar will get it.
Okay.
But I will read it verbally for those who are watching the recording. So fear not, we'll get you that Zoom ID number so you can join and check it out. All right, so we'll come back. Just maybe Anne-Marie, give me a nudge when you get that in there. Okay, here's a comment from our own Susan Nguyen, who is instrumental for Team Up for Hope. She just wanted to make a comment. Thank you all for sharing your stories and for the help you've given me and other family members who have a loved one with a mental illness. This webinar is incredible. I took the family to family class and Sheila was one of her teachers. Wow, I didn't know that. Nami gave me understanding, education, tools to deal with situations, and the ability to explain my daughter's illness to family members and friends who did not understand her mental illness. That class was my support group. I am so grateful to you all for giving so much of yourselves. And I echo that. I can tell you firsthand, these people who you're listening to on this webinar, they don't get paid for what they do. They take a serious amount of time out of their lives to make this stuff happen. This is why it's important that we do what we can to help them. Not only just give them support, but we need to help them financially, right? Could you imagine everybody that we've heard talk tonight has to run these meetings and these training sessions, and then they have to try to raise money to keep the lights on for their office and pay the rent and this, that, the other thing. You know, it's too much. And that's where we come in. We need to help them by giving some of our treasure to them so that they can do the good work that they're doing for our friends and family and community members. All right, great. Thank you for that, Susan. That was a great little testimony. Here's another question. Anne Marie, is your organization strictly in New Jersey? I know with Zoom it doesn't matter, but after COVID, will any meetings be in New York, or is there a New York chapter?
In my chat, I did just put in, so my meeting is in New Jersey, in Newton. However, yes, it is virtual. And after we are back in, we've realized what a wonderful, a whole other planet we were missing is the virtual planet that we now can include. So our meetings will be hybrid moving forward. We'll always have Zoom that you can Zoom in. However, smartrecovery.org is the website where you can find meetings in your area. I'm not aware of any I'm not sure if there's Smart Recovery in Warwick, New York area or Orange County. I'm sure there are. I'm just not sure where they might be, but you'll find them at smartrecovery.org. And our services are specific to Sussex County. In New Jersey, recovery support services and agencies like ours are specific to counties. So we can always refer people to different counties within New Jersey. And, you know, one thing I didn't mention, and I think it's important, we have a grant that we go right to the emergency department. Since COVID, we are by iPad only. So when someone is at Newton Medical Center in Newton, we have a setup where we are called and we provide a recovery specialist right now by iPad. So it's been since the fall of 2017, we've been deployed to Newton Medical Center anytime someone is diagnosed or has a substance use disorder. A recovery coach is a person in lived experience. They address the person and help and hopefully get them to agree to recovery support services. The reason I mention it is because of Warwick and Vernon being so close to St. Anthony's and people going to St. Anthony's, they do not have that same service. So if you are nearby and you say you are in Vernon, not that you choose to go to Newton if it's not safe and a good idea. But in Newton is where people are met by a recovery specialist, and something to advocate for in New York to have happen. And maybe there are different services they offer at St. Anthony's, but I'm not aware of that. In addition, Narcan is so available for anybody. If you know anyone with an opiate use disorder, misusing heroin or other opiates, the family should have Narcan. Please send them to call us. We can get them, we can meet with them, tell them how to use it, and get them a free kit. We have those resources.
Great.
Know where they're from.
Okay, just to reiterate some details that are coming through the chat, Anne-Marie, some from you, and then some other people chatting information in. Smartrecovery.org is the Smart Recovery website to find meetings in your area. Anne-Marie's Thursday night, 6 p.m. Smart Recovery Family and Friends group is held through Zoom. So you can go to zoom.us and enter the meeting. The meeting ID is 917-230-074. And again, if you're live here on this webinar, just go to the chat. You'll get that information a lot easier than trying to write it down on a piece of paper. If you're watching the recording of this, you can pause and go back and forth. The password for that meeting, you want me to give that out?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. The password is 639809, 639809. And then we had some information chatted in here too, that 8778-HOPE-NY for substance abuse assistance, or you can text 467369. True? You're not sure?
That's not me.
Yeah, no, so I just thought maybe you could verify it.
Oh, I don't know. Well, somebody posted is it the Hope NY for substance use?
Yeah, 8778-HOPE-NY.
Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with that. That's a New York number, but
Okay. So Andrew, the one who's sending this in, just says that's from OASASNY where I work. Great. Thank you, Andrew, for that. That's great. Okay, and we have one last question. This is from an anonymous attendee, and we appreciate those just as much as people who have their names. Thank you all panelists. This was very moving. Do you have any advice for how to remain calm during the crisis of your child? That's a good one.
I want to put my hand up.
Yeah.
That's really a good one. I get a lot of questions like that, and basically, and NAMI Family to Family, and also as well as NAMI Basics. In those classes, we do offer through our communication skills class, we offer how to communicate, how to de-escalate with our loved ones. And first thing, you want to let them know that you care, and you don't want to take it personally. You don't take their behavior, their emotional behavior personally. You try to use I statements instead of you use I statements. I feel very afraid when you behave like this. I feel like you don't love me. You have to use I statements. It doesn't require a response from them, and it doesn't lead to an argument. Okay, you have to become non-threatening, no blaming. You want to keep dialogue open. You want to keep them engaged with family. That was very difficult for me because my family loved my son the way he used to be, and they had to learn to love him the way he is now. You want to keep them engaged with celebrations, holidays, as such as it's, and you will be teaching your family members to understand. So you want to keep them engaged. And again, develop a team. Have your team ready. When things get really bad or, out of control, have your team ready, on hand, standby, people you can talk to, allies, people that are empathetic, that will, be there for you. It's very important to have that team. It can consist of everyone, priest, church, clergy, anyone.
Can be people from your support group.
Your coach. Yeah, your coach. People from your support group, their coach. All types of people can become allies in a time like this, and have that team ready and ready to go all the time. I hope that was helpful.
It was. Okay, so go ahead.
Can I just share that if you're
Please, Karen,
speaking
go ahead.
about a child under 18, there are some wonderful resources for children, and you can start by calling your local NAMI, and then we'll direct you to the local resources for children. Like in New Jersey, there's a whole New Jersey children's system of care, and it's basically free.
Great. Great. Okay, so one last time, I just want to show everybody our website, teamupforhope.org, all right, and just show you how easy it is to make a donate. There's the button right there. 100% of the proceeds go to Nami Orange and Nami Sussex. We're splitting it down the middle. And if you don't want to donate it through us, it's a 501c3 charitable organization, so every penny that you spend will be tax deductible. But if you don't want to do it, donate directly to them. It doesn't really matter to us. The money's going to them anyway. We're just trying to make it easy to raise some money here for them. And the importance of what they do. Listen, they work so hard, these women here on the panel and other men and everybody who's involved in all these organizations. And for them to have to stop what they're doing, the good work, to try to go and raise money, to me is a waste of time. That's where we come in, right? We want to help them to not have to worry about that and give them the resources that they need to continue this great work. So I hope that we as a community can do that for them and open our wallets a little bit and give them some money. And at the end of the day, it's tax deductible. So that helps us reduce the amount of taxes that we have to pay at year end. All right, so without further ado, we'll just wrap this up. Nicole or Karen, take us out, and thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and our community is extremely fortunate to have a team of people working out there supporting and being available to us. It really, tonight was, I know you ladies were a little nervous about the webinar, but you guys were amazing. Absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. We're very fortunate to have you in our corners and available to provide supports to people out there. So thank you. Very much appreciate it. Really is.
And thank you, Jeffrey and Team Up for Hope. Great thing you're doing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks everyone for coming and watching. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.